Welcome to the Partners Podcast. My name is Brendan Hsu. I'm joined today here with my friend Erick Gydessen, and today we want to hold a space for us to just have real, genuine conversations. Erick, he's with GG Homes. They've been killing it in their space, and we want to do a deep dive in what's led to Erick's success in his role at his company, and then talk a little bit about the journey that has gotten him and his company to where we're at today, and then hopefully provide you with some actionable insights and tips that you can take to your own business and become more successful. Erick, you are the COO of GG Homes. Mm-hmm. What led you into this industry and what got you to this position that you currently hold?
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't like setting out in my collegiate journey to come join real estate, actually. I had ran some different businesses prior, but I was at an event late at night, and a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, I have an interview tomorrow morning. It's at 8 a.m. There's another gentleman that was supposed to come with me, but he just took a job somewhere else." And he asked me to come interview the next morning at 8 a.m. I'm like, "My guy, it's midnight right now." And he's like, "I know, but just come through. I'm connected with two guys that are in the real estate investing space, and they're looking to bring on a few guys to their team." So, I didn't know much about it, just went in blind and met some guys that were really big in apartment development and in syndication and had done quite well, and they also had some background in lending. And so what happened was we were building out an investment purpose lending company. And so I started off working with investors that were largely fixing and flipping homes, doing buy and hold rentals, et cetera, and I was arranging the financing for them on these projects. And so that's how I got started in the real estate space. And that journey was for a couple years, and I was still in school for the first part of it, graduated, kept doing it, built a book of business. And one of my first clients was my business partner, Phil, today. And eventually he's like, "Erick, why don't you just come work with us? I see you doing well here. Why don't you come work with us, help us start off doing acquisitions, finding deals." And it led from doing sales over there and get my real estate license to now it's just graduated to the position that I'm in today.
Yeah. What would you say are the qualities that you had to demonstrate, and both through your actions and through like the challenges, the problems you were solving, that helped prove that you were worthy of the position you hold now?
Yeah, great question. I think being able to problem solve at a very high level comes from experience. It comes from learning different things from different people. So I became a sponge. I was just trying to learn as much as I possibly could from anyone that I saw value from within the industry. And I was taking bits and pieces, and I was using those bits and pieces to go ahead and solve these more complex problems. We started off in largely doing distressed markets, people that were behind on payments, people that were dealing with probate situations, and all these different crazy distress environments. And so what happened was I had a crash course learning on how to solve those types of problems for sellers.
Yeah.
And that problem solving continued to translate it into, okay, well, I've learned it to how to acquire deals. Now how can I go problem solve and help someone else do the same thing I just did, right? And that would take a slightly different set of skill sets, but ultimately came back to problem solving. And in business, you really are paid in direct proportion to the quantity and the magnitude of the problems that you're able to solve for your customer, your team members, et cetera. And so I just took that into each evolution of the business, and that's kind of where we found ourselves at today.
Yeah, there's this book I've read before called The Linchpin, and it's about like just trying to be the jack of all trades, not necessarily master of none, like master of everything, you know, and you just become indispensable in an organization because you understand every aspect of the business. And if you don't understand the super technical aspect, at least you understand the high level like strategy behind what makes something successful or something not.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really awesome that you did that for yourself, and that's like advice I also provide the employees at my business as well as other entrepreneurs, is like learn as much as you can. Like there is nothing that you can't learn if you are willing to learn.
That's right.
And what would you say helped you, like what are some strategies that you have to help you learn faster?
Yeah, number one, go find the person or persons that are at the top of that field, if you can. And when I say find them, if you can find them physically, great, but even online, and go see what they're doing. That success will leave clues, and go understand what it is that allows them to be having the levels of success that they're having, and get around that any way that you can. And so, for me, that was going to networking events to start off. I was going to just the local real estate meetups, shaking hands with people, having side conversations, listening to the presentations. And then I realized, okay, there's this local game. And then I realized, okay, there's also this non-local game that's on a larger scale, and I can go find these next levels or these next circles of people and just get around them and see what they're doing. And so number one, if you can find a great mentor or a great resource, a great podcast, a great YouTube channel, something like this, for example, right?
Yeah.
You're in the right spot. And keep consuming content and find different nuggets, if you will, from other people that you can add to your tool belt that'll create your arsenal over time. And so that's number one is I would get around those types of people.
Yeah.
I think there's a component of also hiring somebody at some point. The accountability increases, the level of insights can deepen, the amount of trust and help and what someone can actually provide back to you can improve. Yeah. And so we're constantly hiring new coaches, new experts in different fields. In fact, we just hired a new expert today in a different field. And so we're constantly bringing those people in. And then I think as far as learning is concerned, there's a ton of content out there, right? An overflow. There's just, it's enormous.
So much.
And so you have this problem. Some people don't consume enough content, and that's probably what's holding them back from that next level of success. And then there's a lot of people that consume so much content, but they're not implementing when they're getting the content, because they're just spending day after day after day consuming the next piece of content. So what I'm trying to do, I consciously make this decision. Sometimes I catch myself, I'm on a rabbit hole sometimes, but what I try to do is figure out what do I want to learn and get good at right in this moment and focus on that content intake. So right now, if I want to focus on, I want to get better at content and content creation, social media, etc. Well, guess what? I'm going to go spend time around people that are experts in that field, see what they're doing, get involved with them, brush shoulders with them, take a look at what I can find online, and go deep into that. And I'm going to try to block out the other stuff until I feel like I've gotten to where I need to go.
Yeah, that's really powerful. It sounds like a really good strategy, which is focus. Like for me, I love learning, and
that's great,
I find myself binge watching so many YouTube like influencers and business leaders, and it's to the point where I'm like, I find myself, well, I've learned all of these things. What of these things am I actually executing on? And like I just learned something right now, and it's reinforced something like I have learned in the past is whatever you're pursuing, double down on that pursuit. Like actually learn specifically about that thing and actually take the time to implement what you've learned, because you can learn forever, and if you don't implement, where does it get you? Nowhere, right? So,
that's right.
You mentioned something that interests me, like it's the concept of hiring coaches and consultants. At what point do you hire a coach and consultant? How do you qualify them that they're the right coach and consultant for your business? And after you answer that, the following question would be, when do you hire a coach and consultant, and when do you hire an employee or contractor or staff to help with the actual execution per se?
Yeah. So let's talk about hiring coaches first. And I don't know if there's a better way to do it or exact science, but this is kind of what we've done. Is number one, we try to get a new coach every year or less, which is sometimes counterintuitive. Some people are like, hey, I got this coach, I really like them, I want to keep them for a long term. We try to bring in new coaches to the fold at least annually, because we believe we can learn different things from other people. And that's kind of our approach to start off. When we hire them, usually it's some type of need that we're trying to get better at, right? And so we'll hire in a coach for that specific need when we realize, hey, we have a shortcoming in this area of our business. Let's hire a coach in this area, let's improve it. I think for most people watching though, especially if they're in a sales positions, new business owners, et cetera, which I imagine is a large part of the audience, is you probably will want to hire a coach sooner than you might think. It's sooner than what feels comfortable. If I have, let's call it 5 digits in the bank account type business, right? That's what the business bank account is. One of your best investments is actually going to be in that coach that can get you from that first level or second level to levels 3, 4, and 5. Right? I know that money is very precious to reinvest into the business, but one of the best things you can do is find someone who's been there before, hire them on. I think a lot of people have a hard time making that first investment into a coach. But when they do, what's going to happen is they're going to gain some insights. They're going to take them past $100,000, $200,000 in mistakes, right? And they're going to get a return on their money faster.
you're talking about money right now and how much to potentially invest in a coach. How much is it? Like, you know, if you're at, let's just say you're sitting on $50,000 and you're successful compared to where you're at when you graduated college and you had just enough for beer money. How much is reasonable if you're starting to break the 5-figure a month mark, like on average making over 10K, you got 50K in the bank account. What type of investment do you think is appropriate to be making in coaching?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a coaching program almost on all budgets. The beauty of the internet and the beauty of finding someone in your specific niche, like I think there's a range. You can come with people that have courses, for example, and maybe that is your mentor, is the course itself, right? And that could be anywhere from a couple $100s to a few $1,000s. And I think if you have a live coach that's helping you, doing phone calls and or meetings, accountabilities, trainings, etc., that can increase. And I think you can go anywhere from a few $1,000s to some of the more expensive coaches, maybe $10,000 a month on the upward side. So I think there's a range. I think it's get in where you fit in, but find someone that's done or has helped other people accomplish the next step of where it is in your business. If you're unsure what the next step in your business might look like, that's a good conversation piece to have when you go to networking events. Go find someone else who's maybe a few steps ahead in that kind of business or a complementary business and ask them how they got there. And who they know, they probably know the right person. Yeah,
there's a lot of fake gurus on the internet. How do you qualify the right person? Like, how do you make sure that the person that you're talking to isn't just didn't pay like 4 random actors for like a testimonial?
Yeah, totally, right.
A few fake reviews and it's not trying to charge you $3,000 a month for coaching and consulting.
Yeah, great question. What I would do is I would talk to other customers, other clients, other customers. I think you can get a lot of good insights. And I think people are generally going to speak more optimistically on a surface level. So you'll just want to dive deeper with more, have like geared questions. Like when you started coaching with them, where were you in your business? Where are you at today? How long did that take? What did the coaching sessions actually look like? Which were the ones that you find the most value? Which ones do you find the least amount of value in? If you could change something about the coaching, what would it look like? And so that type of deeper questioning is going to unveil a lot more than, hey, how was it?
Yeah,
because
for sure.
If you want better answers, ask better questions. And I think prep those questions that you have for those people. And what happens is people love to share about that, right? If someone's really passionate about a coach, you're going to hear it in their voice. Like emotionally, you'll understand that they gained a lot from that type of coach. And so I would try to talk to the customers, number one, and just trust your gut. I mean, I think everyone has a strong intuition to some degree, right? That's why we're surviving on this planet, right? You don't have strong enough intuition, you probably made some bad mistakes, might not be here. So trust your gut. It's gotten you to this point in your business and life, and trust that as well.
Awesome. That's great advice, I think, is to actually talk to the customers and ask better questions, like dig deeper. If you're going to just say, ask how it was, people are going to say, good, great. How much, does that help you really understand why you should spend, $1,000, couple thousand on coaching and consulting? Since you have paid so much for coaching and consulting, what are maybe 1 or 2 things that you've learned recently from your coaching and consulting that you could pass on to the audience here today?
Yeah, oh gosh. I think for me, one thing that I was dealing with was having crucial conversations with leaders within organizations, people that are developing and becoming leaders within organizations that have larger responsibilities, the emotional states that will phase in and out during that leadership journey, and being able to have crucial conversations that are very direct. And I think a lot of people have a hard time having those types of conversations, and I myself had those. More difficulty than other types of conversations is being more direct with someone and giving the type of feedback that someone needed to grow. And sometimes you kind of dance around a little too long, and that's something that I was doing. So a coach really pointed that out for me. Since then, what's ended up happening is the right people have stayed within the organization, and they've grown, and they've learned more and more things about themselves and their people. And so those crucial conversations, it's a tough topic. That's what really starts to elevate that next level of leadership. So for me, that was something more recently.
Wow, that's powerful. I got a little bit of goosebumps from hearing that because it reminds me of a journey I'm going through myself as a business leader that works with 10 managers, that is involved in a few companies, is being direct and having those uncomfortable conversations that oftentimes start with yourself, right? Because your coach outlined to you that you're not willing to have those conversations because
Right.
you're scared.
Yes.
And you're like, oh shit, you're right. Like I am. That's uncomfortable for me to have those conversations. And I think we both can agree, being having gotten to where we're at, that uncomfortableness, that those challenging conversations are where you grow the most.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Is there one other piece of maybe consulting that you've gotten in the last year that's also helped you accelerate your professional path?
Yeah, I think one that was really profound, it actually was a little bit about 2 years ago, but I think it's a really good starting point for a lot of people in the audience probably, is we moved to the EOS business tracking system, which is the entrepreneurial operating system. And we brought in a consulting group, Sharper, and they're fantastic, by the way, especially for the real estate investment space, or really anyone that has a business that's more small to medium size that's looking to grow to that next level. And so they came in and helped us really build the structure, processes, procedure mapping that we needed for our business to get to that next level. Getting from roughly 35 employees to close to 100 employees or team members is a big jump. And a lot of what got you there won't get you to where you're going.
Yeah.
Right? And so you have to really adapt. And so that level of consulting was really powerful to us because we hadn't been there yet. Right? And so bringing someone that had Gary and his team, who he's been Fortune 500 executives. That's what his experience level was. Also was an operator himself of an investing company, so he was able to bridge that gap for us. And so having someone who's walked in those shoes prior was super, super valuable, especially when we scaled to that level.
Yeah, the concept of scale is interesting to me because for the longest time I'm like, oh, if I just keep doing this and scaling, I'm going to keep making more money. But when you scale a human organization, there's more personalities,
Yes.
there's more inefficiencies, there's more management that's needed.
That's right.
So how do you, like based off your experience, how do you maintain that where like you're not growing too fast, that you're just bringing on people for the sake of growing, just like I guess a lot of companies grow with an ego. They just want an office and headcount. This is like, are you even profitable at some point, right? And I feel like I fell into that trap. It's just like, let me just grow.
Yes.
And I was so focused on growing, I wasn't focused on operational efficiency, setting like good objectives and key results like OKRs and things of that nature. So the question once again is, how do you juggle between scaling and efficiency?
Yeah. What you're grappling with really is how do we scale but also have sustainability within our people, our systems, and our processes, right? And I think what starts with, it may sound cliche, is like think about where do I want to be 3 years from now maybe? I can have a 10-year overhanging big time goal, right? Of maybe a North Star where I want to get to. But 3 years is still more manageable, right? So I like to look at like a 3 year first, say if this is where we want to be, will we be fulfilled with our mission 3 years from now? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work backwards to what does year 2 look like? What does year 1 look like? How do I get year 1, 2, and then to that 3rd year? And that will give me that fulfillment for myself and the organization and the mission. Once I get down to the 1 year, then I might want to break it up into quarters. And that quarter is what I'm gonna really focus on. So I'm just gonna truncate part of that process down to something that's more manageable, more concrete. Otherwise, it's too hard to really. I think it's too hard to just map. Okay, in 3 years from now, I'm going to be hiring my 394th employee. Like that, you know what I mean? It's just too much. And so I'm going to truncate it down to a quarter. And so whatever that quarter's initiatives are is where I'm going to base the hiring around.
Yeah.
Now, as far as workflow and workload and types of tasks, what I'm figuring out is where is my existing leadership or existing producers? Where are they starting to hit restraints? Okay. If we have someone that's out signing deals for us, they're in a sales position, and their constraint is, well, they're already capped on their appointment and workflow. How can I make their life easier? Well, there might be a role there. What happens if this person is worth, their value generation is $1,000 an hour? How can I maximize more of that? Example of this was like we had a sales guy. He was driving to all his own appointments, trying to do calls on the way, trying to get his computer going, and he was getting capped on the amount of appointments. So what do? We're like, well, we have a gap here. Why don't we hire someone else to come drive him to these appointments so he can make calls in the meantime, doesn't have to worry about the travel, and
getting in
opens up
that
more
car
times.
accident.
Yeah, get in a car accident,
Yeah.
and someone can help them, and that's the hire that we made.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for my leadership, and then also the producers in the organization, where are they starting to hit constraints? Okay, I'm going to hire around those. And what I also want to look at is capacity-wise. If someone's starting to hit more than 85% capacity, in your growing organization, you're probably going to start looking toward that next scale for that same position.
85%, how do you measure that? Like, how do you know that that's 85 and they're not dilly-dallying with the other 15,
Yeah, great.
40% of their time?
Yeah, great question. It's something that we're working on too. I think most small and medium businesses struggle with this, right? Is in scale, it's hard to make sure you're optimizing everyone's workload. Number one, that they enjoy it. Secondly, that they're doing enough of it, right? And so it's an ongoing process. And I think what we like to do is really sit behind and understand a day in the life of what someone's doing, and figure out how long does it typically take to complete a certain type of activity, right? Once we have that generalization and a benchmark from someone else, we can use that benchmark against other positions in that role. And then we're going to basically try to build goals around a capacity level and start to fill that workload. And once we start to realize that, hey, people are pushing back, hey, I don't have time to get to this, or they're they come into a one-on-one, they're like, oh, I'm burned out. I'm house to house to house to house. I don't have enough time to finish my projects. I'm going to be behind on projects. I'm going to start to hear that feedback and realize, okay, they're starting to be overbooked. Yeah. And that type of feedback will then move back to the recruiting side, saying, hey, we need to bring in more talent to the organization for this, and this role.
Yeah. You mentioned this one thing called one-on-ones. I think that's something that I've learned how to do better in the last year or two. What is your strategy? Like, what's an effective one-on-one? What's the cadence? Like, how often should you have a one-on-one with an employee from, like, I guess, manager to employee, or manager to direct report? And what do you talk about? Like, what are the topics on a good one-on-one?
Yeah, great question. So for one-on-ones, I think a great cadence would be a weekly check-in, where you have time slated to specifically go over that structure that you had talked about. We have a longer period of time to go through things. Sometimes the need, though, might not be every week. It might be every other week, too. But I think somewhere in that range, if you have a direct report, should be in that type of frequency. That doesn't mean I'm not following up with people in between. It doesn't mean that's my only conversation with them. It doesn't mean that I can ignore them for the other 2 weeks, and then we have our one-on-one, everything's good. That's not going to work well. But for that structured time, number one, what I like to do is have them bring an agenda to me. Okay? They know what their goals are. We've already discussed what a quarterly goal is, we call them rocks, in our organization, of what our initiatives are. We also have their KPIs, their key performance and process indicators of what they're aiming to accomplish. We've already set those out. Okay? And so I want them to bring an agenda to me that is most valuable to them, that talks about their progress toward their quarterly goals plus their KPIs. And then also give them a chance to ask additional questions, ask for feedback, have sometimes just a chat, right? More than getting just like your KPIs and your numbers correct, more importantly, I think, is getting people's minds right. Mm-hmm. If the mind's right, the numbers will often follow. And I think that's understated within those areas of business. So sometimes I'll go into a one-on-one, there's an agenda laid out, it gets put on the desk saying, hey, this is what I want to talk about. And my first question is, how's everything going? You doing okay? And all of a sudden it might move for a full hour. Yeah. I don't even look at the numbers. I don't even pay attention to them. They might as well not exist. Yeah. And we speak for an hour straight about talking about getting the mind right. Yeah. And just what someone's going through. And that itself might be the roadblock for if there is any shortcomings there.
Why is that so important? Like, understanding someone's mind, like showing that you truly care about their well-being, right? Mm-hmm. Even sometimes, like for me, I'm a coach, and I feel like I care about my students, my partners, I call them, more than they care about themselves on a certain day. Yeah. I'm checking in with them, like, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? Yeah. Why is it so important to not be all business? Yeah. People need to know that you care. And if you don't care in today's day and age and in the workplace, with how competitive it is, they're not going to be there, because it's not going to be fulfilling to them unless they're with people that are supporting their vision for life too. Like, really, when you're building a business,
your vision of your business and where you're going needs to be big enough for the visions of everyone else to operate within it. Okay, and additionally, your capacity to handle what someone's going through needs to be large enough. That capacity needs to be large enough so that you can support them when times are tough, because times do get tough. Let's be honest, for everybody, right?
For sure.
Ourselves included. Like, it gets rough, right? So you need that capacity. So it's like everyone has needs. You talk about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? There's safety and structure is one of them, and sometimes if one of those needs aren't being fulfilled, people are going to be unhappy, and that unhappiness will transfer into maybe the conversations they're having with customers or clients. Or that conversation will be happening to themselves, become too self-critical, and they start procrastinating on their work. Because they're too worried about what's going to happen if it's wrong. And all of a sudden the project's delayed 3 weeks. And so it really does start with the right mindset. And this is tough as a leader, because you bear a lot of responsibilities, right? And it's not for everyone. Some people, they're better off being a high performer, so they don't have to handle those types of conversations. And some people are better suited for those types of conversations and making sure they can get everyone's head right.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very insightful and valuable, I think, is to really understand how much that can affect your organization, your clients, your own team members. Like, it could lead to toxicity, even if their mindset's wrong. They get to like caught up with feelings or like, I guess an internal mindset that just puts them in a scarcity mindset, or puts them in a mindset of jealousy, or like, I don't have enough. It's like one of my personal business beliefs is like, I'm never going to tell someone no. I want to tell someone how they can get there. Like, if someone's just like, I should get paid more, I'm like, yeah, of course you should. Let me show you how you can get there. Right. You don't want to tell them, no, you don't deserve to get paid more, because that's going to make them feel definitely some type of way. Let's jump back into like hiring, because we talked about coaching, consulting, mindset. Like, this is, I feel like, more, at least from an organizational perspective, like, reaching on hire and what about like having team members to support your organization, role players, right? That maybe want to do the 9 to 5. They're not necessarily like entrepreneur. How do you find those individuals to support the organization, because they're super important as well, right? Within an organization, and how do you qualify that they're the right fit?
Great question. What I would typically start with is I want to be very clear about who I'm hiring and what they're going to be doing. If I'm not sure, I just feel like, hey, we're overloaded, we need additional help, but I can't explicitly quantify what it is, spend time doing that first. Understand, hey, I have these shortcomings on X, Y, and Z. It takes about X amount of my time or someone else's time within the organization. Or, hey, this part of our business on, let's call it recruiting or marketing, is insufficient. I need to hire someone to bridge this gap. Figure out exactly, get very clear with what it is first, okay? Then I want to be thinking about, are there other people that have a similar role to that currently that are high performers? What I want to do is I'm going to go back to them and figure out the qualities and attributes about what they do and who they are as people that makes them successful. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to create a framework, a comp, if you will, of someone else that can come be successful in that role. And so what we do is we'll send out different assessments to the existing people that are in that role that have been successful, and figure out, okay, what is their behavioral type like? What motivates them? What gets them excited? And what does their journey of success look like? I want to understand who that person is. And if we don't have them on our team, I'm going to go to outside organizations and ask them, hey, I see you have a really great content person. Can I talk to them for a little bit? What are they like? And I'm going to figure out everything about them, and I'm going to get a couple different of those data points to then figure out who that type of person is I want to hire. From there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my collateral, my job ads, my descriptions, my internal email team members on our team saying, hey, this is who we're looking for. This is the type of person that they are. This is what would get them excited. Do you know anyone that fits this role? Or for the job ad, I'm putting the job ads up. And from there, we're doing initial intakes, getting them excited about the company, learning about them, seeing if they're starting to be a good culture fit. And then we run them through a bunch of different assessments. And these assessments do a really good job of telling them, hey, would this be the right seat on the bus for them? Or are they better suited in a different seat? Everyone has amazing, unique talents. right? And so if you're different than someone else who's been in a business before, let's say you're starting your own business and the other person who's built the business successfully is completely different than you, that's okay. You just need to become very self-aware of what your talents are. And it's the same way when you're hiring someone, is someone's going to be different. You just need to figure out, how do I unlock that talent based on who they are as people? And that's what these assessments tell us. And so with a really high level of accuracy, we know who we're going to be hiring and what they're going to be good at. We want to make sure they fit the mold for our position. The types of people that we bring in, some of the best, I think, like just concrete, very practical, is if you have great people in your organization already, which I imagine most people listening to this, if they have their own business, do, because guess what? They're getting amazing content and they're choosing to spend their time listening to your podcast. They probably have great people on their team. Go talk to them and go talk to yourself maybe.
Yeah.
Who do I know that are amazing people, that are doing amazing things either professionally or personally, and go ask for those referrals, and you'll get a ton. I think 60% of our organization is through what we call a forced referral technique, where I'm actually sitting down, or our recruitment team is sitting down with people that are existing on the staff, asking who they know.
Yeah.
What'll happen is that'll build a really strong culture too.
Yeah, and people like to work with their friends.
They do, absolutely. Yeah.
That's true.
As long as everything's going well.
Yeah. What about the opposite end of the spectrum? Like, how do you, like, I feel like when I started growing my organization, I was reaching out to all my friends, and like, I got a few of them to join, and I felt like I've put some people in the wrong roles because they were my friends. They got the friend card, and now if you're Brendan's friend, you got to go through another round of interviews. You know, like it's a secondary round. So
you learn.
how do you balance that? Like that someone, just because someone's a friend, they're not getting like ahead of everyone else just because they're a friend.
It's a shift in mindset. And what I mean by that is, if you bring someone into the role that isn't the right fit, just because they're a friend, what's happening is you're creating a disservice for the organization as a whole and for yourself as a leader, but you're also doing them a disservice. I think that's what most people don't understand, is like, if I bring someone into the wrong role because they're a friend, they're going to struggle. They're not going to produce the results that we'd be looking for. They're not going to hit the metrics that we're hitting. They're not going to go for the quarterly initiatives that we're trying to roll out. And what's going to happen is that struggle and that negative feedback will eat away at them. And eventually they'll find themselves out of the business at some point in time, or they'll be miserable in it. And so you can eliminate all that up front with just that crucial conversation, saying, hey, you know what? In evaluating it, I think you're an amazing talent. This specific role, I don't think it's for you though. I really don't. I think it would be a disservice for me to offer you, as much as I want to hire you. I think it'd be a disservice for me to hire you, because I think ultimately you wouldn't be happy with it.
Yeah, that's powerful. And in many ways, responsible. You're responsible. Being a good friend, I believe, is telling someone what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And sometimes people need to hear, hey, it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
Let's circle back on GG Homes. Like, what are you guys up to? Like, what are you guys doing right now? What's exciting? What's going on in the market?
Oh boy, a lot. First and foremost, so GG Homes is our core business. We have a handful of other businesses. We're vertically integrated, but I'll talk about GG first. GG is the largest privately held single-family home buyer in Southern California. So we purchase anywhere, on an average year, anywhere between 350 and 400-ish homes per year, largely in San Diego County. We purchase those assets. We do some type of value add to them most all the time. And those value adds would be, fix and flip renovation. We'll do some development, some infill type stuff. We'll add square footage, you name it. Sometimes we're repurposing them for rentals. Sometimes we're turning them into short-term rentals. And sometimes we're just reselling them or developing them. There's a bunch of different exits for it. But by and large, a real estate acquisition company, figure out how to create highest and best use for that asset, and then monetizing it from there. And that's our core business. And it's been a fun year.
Yeah. So you work with a lot of investors then to buy 300, 400 homes in SoCal.
Yeah.
Like you got to work with a lot of capital, right?
Yeah, we. It's funny. We've scaled this business over time, so a lot of the funding is still just retained earnings, internal. We use debt financing, et cetera, for these projects. Real estate's relatively easy to finance, which is nice. A great part about real estate. It's easily financeable to some degree. But we work largely, like to get to that number of projects, we do work with a lot of agents and brokers that know and trust us within the marketplace. And when they have properties that fit that mold, that have value add potential, they bring it to us.
Yeah.
And we have them represent us, and they make commissions and earnings off of those acquisitions for us. We position the property for a value add and then take it from there. And so we work with a lot of outside agents and brokers, and we also have a very large direct-to-consumer marketing channel that brings in a lot of deals ourselves. And so that's where we're largely partnered with everyone, yeah.
So I think we can all agree, we see headlines, I watch YouTube, and the headlines are like, housing market, prices are falling, like interest rates are going up. You're buying all these homes, how do you make sure that you're not buying them like at too high of a price and you're holding the bag on hundreds of homes?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we don't win on every deal. We don't. I wish we did. But there are a small percentage that we do lose on. What we want to look at is real time, what does the demand of that market really look like? When I say market, it's not San Diego County, we really niche down to that neighborhood even. And we're looking at what's sold, what's the velocity of that sale, where's that velocity going, and what does affordability look like for the end consumer? Mm-hmm. Okay. When we can understand these pieces, okay, well, how much can someone really afford, or what will someone really pay here on a monthly basis to live in this exact neighborhood for this exact type of property, given the sentiment in the market? When we can start to plug in those variables, we have a pretty good idea of indicating where future pricing will be. So for this last 6 months, for example, we knew that this market was going to have some pullback, going to have some contraction, right? And so we were anticipating a 15 to 20% contraction in our numbers. So for a period of time, it was tough. Our offers came down a lot, very quickly. In fact, ahead of the markets. But that's what we saw in front of us with our asset management team. And how did we get there? We looked at affordability, we looked at velocity of the markets, we looked at sentiment, we looked at interest rates. And what we saw was we had this contraction. And so for us, we started to change our underwriting in advance of these prices coming down. I think if you have a really firm grasp of your market, you can get close to being able to understand the short-term run of where a market will go.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Very, very insightful. Like a little bit above my, my level of expertise in buying and selling homes. So when it comes to your other, you mentioned you're vertically integrated, you have other components of your business. What are those other components, and why did you choose to start them?
Yeah, great question. The other larger operation, it's a sister company of GG Homes, is our real estate team. So we work traditional agency alongside the investment vehicle, and that's called the Honest Agent Team. And we bring on amazing real estate agents within the San Diego market, allow them to leverage a lot of the huge competitive advantages that GG as an investor has, but also add the retail piece to it. And so what that allows someone to do is come into an organization where, because the margins for investing are larger than the agency space, we can invest more money into lead generation, technology, training and support and leadership, you name it. So that investment dollar is actually larger, and we can pour that right into the real estate agency side. And they also get to understand the investment side of real estate while doing retail real estate, running open houses and answering phone calls on properties. And because we're also one of the largest providers of inventory in our market at any given time, they also get to benefit from that lead generation. So that was just a natural progression, like, hey, we're leaving a lot of money on the table here, not having people to serve these leads, because they just were going underserved, right? And so that's what that kind of built out. We also started a digital marketing company. And the reason we started it was the demand was massive. We started to realize that we were fantastic at pay-per-click marketing, really good at pay-per-click marketing for the real estate space. And we could generate seller leads at great costs, at high volumes for most all markets. We had an amazing PPC guy on our staff who's our marketing director. And it was a natural progression because people were hounding us saying, hey, please do my PPC marketing for us, right? When you have that type of demand for a business and you can service it without disrupting other parts of your business, that might be a good idea to start that business.
Makes sense.
And that's what we did. We have a development division as well. The development division does real estate syndications for largely multifamily development. San Diego has this housing crisis, most of California really, but this housing crisis. There's not enough housing available for the population. We have this large continual growth in population to our county, and not enough building permits being pulled, and not enough density. And so we're solving that problem by doing multifamily development. So that was another need, massive need, that we were uniquely positioned to fulfill. And we have a development division going. And we also are exploring some other pieces on the lending side and technology side. We've gotten really good at the technology side, and we also, my background was in the lending side. And so I think toward the future, we know that we can help a lot more people, especially in their investing careers, do a lot better by opening up these other verticals and taking our insights and our knowledge and our systems and helping them build bigger. So that's kind of what we're moving into.
That's awesome. You're building a lot and building a lot of dreams for a lot of people.
We're trying.
Homes, building careers. If you had one last lesson that you can give to the audience, what would that be? You've been, how old are you, Eric?
I'm 31.
You're 31, and you're leading a 100-person organization. Been there since almost like the ground floor, more or less.
Yeah.
How does someone get to where you're at if they're looking to go down that route? Like, what is the most important lesson that you want to give to them?
Yeah, there's a couple things that come to mind, but I think what I'll talk about today is it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It didn't just happen overnight either. When I say sacrifice, like, you're going to have to do things that maybe you're not the best at, or maybe you don't want to do to make it. You're going to have to go through that struggle at a high level to come out the other side and have the skill sets and the tenacity to go win at a high level. You just really do. Like, you got to go through that failure part. And so I think for me that was different than what I saw some of my peers around me. Was there's a period of time when I was starting the real estate space, like, I was working 3 different side jobs just to get by. I was driving Uber at night.
Wow.
I didn't do anything on weekend. I'd try to work all day, learn what I could, try to make business, and I just wasn't that great yet at what I was doing. I was still accumulating, and then I'd go, instead of going out at night and doing the thing, I literally would go drive from 8 o'clock until 4 in the morning, and then I'd wake up and go do it the next day on Saturday, and that's how I spent my days. And so I made those sacrifices in order to accomplish the end goal.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was painful for me. Like, I didn't like who I was, and I almost had this sense of, like, am I ever going to be able to break through and do it? And so it was really frustrating. But I just, didn't quit, and I got around the right people. And eventually, all that accumulation, all those failures eventually allowed me to break through. And honestly, I'm still making a ton of mistakes. There's times where, I don't feel like I've made it at all. I feel like we're just beginning, and I feel like I'm still getting kicked around. And doing things I don't want to do. So it's not like I'm sorry, guys, it's not like it totally just changes either. But I think that work ethic and that ability to persevere, if you don't have that, certain routes might not be the best route for you. And that's totally fine too. Yeah. Go find the route that really is going to give you the most fulfillment and joy. And for me, this was that route. I wanted to just push through it.
And two more questions. Hard work. That's something that, you have the discipline, you've been able to develop that, but I think underlying that is a why, a purpose. What drives you to put in all that hard work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. For me, it's really it's not even really about what my why, it's the people around me. I get a ton of satisfaction from seeing other people around me succeed at a high level. It's weird, if I do something, I don't like the recognition. It kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. Yeah. But I get a lot of enjoyment seeing other people succeed at a high level. And whether that's a peer or someone that, that I've been leading or managing or whatever myself, or someone I've hired into the organization. For me, there's a lot of friends that I work with and other people that I've hired within the organization. They're doing so well. And I'm just so proud of them and so happy. And seeing their success is what continues to drive me. I think other things are more cause-oriented, on a larger scale. I think the more problems that we can solve locally, whether it be housing, making great places for people to work, those are the beginning problems that we're solving today. And I think the larger scales we can take this and solve larger and larger problems that are going to benefit people and increase the quality of life for others around. And ultimately, that's what for me, the journey we'll move into.
You know, we're doing content, right? Why invest in content? Why like your time is valuable. How much do you value your time at? And you came all the way here to create content?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I see content as digital real estate. I really do. And so being in the real estate space, naturally we understand that having high value location is very, very valuable, especially as things get more and more competitive. And so for me, I see content as you're able to create that digital real estate for yourself. Now, digital real estate will pay big money depending on the problems that you're looking to solve for your target audience. And so for me, it's something that I kind of grappled with for a long time, largely because of time constraints. I was kind of factoring in, you know, I could be doing all these different things right now, and this expected value equation that's constantly running in your head, right? Like, am I going to make more money doing this, or this, or am I able to help more people doing this, or this? And I for a long time, I think I undervalued what content could really do for organizations. And I started to see it where like the very little amount that I was putting out there was driving large results. I figured, hey, if we can share our story that can help other people, I think that message is valuable enough to exist in the ether and create some digital real estate. I think there's some benefits from that on the backside. And also it's very enjoyable in the meantime, like I talked about, which is hopefully be able to help one or two people, or maybe more than that, you know, with something that I've experienced. And so I'm having a lot of fun with it and deciding that this is a real initiative for us and something we want to really pursue. Awesome,
I love that. And how do you measure success when it comes to creating content? Because, you know, you've seen some success, but a lot of it sometimes anecdotal, you know, it's a story, and it's like, and I know you run PPC and you can measure like maybe some clicks, but, you know, from just the day in and day out, why join me on this podcast today?
Yeah. I think those are two separate questions. How do I measure success? I'm still figuring that out. I think the goal is just to continue to share, you know, my story and my experiences as much as I possibly can. And if there's people that find it valuable and want to, you know, listen to it, I find that valuable. How we're going to measure that, I think, you know, currently we're just, how much quality content can we put out each week is going to be the new goal. Where that goes, we'll see. I'm not an expert yet. And why I decided to join you guys is, number one, seeing you guys present in the level of intentionality and the level of care that you have for your business and your content really struck me, really stood out as someone that really is going to elevate and runs an awesome program. And I wanted to be a part of that. If I can share any value, I'd love to contribute back to that, because I can see it's an amazing cause and you're doing great stuff in the world. And so for that reason is why I decided to invest my time here with you today. Because ultimately I'd love to see you guys absolutely crush it, and the fact that you even asked me to be on here is an honor. So
yeah, well, you're one of our first podcast guests, and I think you absolutely crushed it in terms of providing value for our audience. And so, you know, we got Erick here. We're gonna drop his social media handles to both himself and his businesses. If you're an investor, if you're looking to join the real estate industry as a professional, whether it's helping buy and sell homes, on the administrative and operations side, his organization is probably one of the best ones in Southern California to join. So if you're trying to move out to California, trying to get a great job at a great company, talk to this guy, apply to work for him, and maybe you'll pass one of his like many tests to be eligible to be part of this amazing organization you've created.
Cool, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, awesome. Well, that's a wrap.